In this video, we will learn the equation method for solving percents. Before we begin, take a moment to think about this question. Cassie got a 5% raise and Jamie got a 6% raise. However, Cassie says she got more money than Jamie. Is this possible? Why or why not? In this case, it is possible. We don't know how much money they made originally, and so that would determine whether or not Cassie's raise could be more than Jamie's. So it depends on what their original amount of money that they made was. 5% of a higher amount could be more than 6% of a lower amount. The percent equation, this is another way to solve percent problems. The percent equation is that the part is equal to the percent times the whole. When we solved some distance, rate, and time questions, we have used this triangle in the past to help us know what to do with the variables that we have and what we're trying to solve for in a problem. So you can use the same triangle for percents as well. P on top is the part, which equals the percent times the whole. If you know the part and the percent and you're trying to find the whole, when you have one number on top and one number on the bottom, you're going to divide those two numbers. So in this case, the part divided by the percent would give us the whole, or the part divided by the whole would give us the percent. And lastly, the percent times the whole, since they're next to each other, we multiply them to give us the part, which is what the original equation says at the top. You can use this to help you, but the most important thing you have to remember in these equations is that you must use the decimal form of your percent that we reviewed earlier in this unit. For example, instead of 50%, we're going to use 0.5. 50 is out of 100, so 50 divided by 100 is 0.5. Another example is 5%. 5% as a decimal is 0.05. 5 divided by 100 is 0.05. Make sure that when you are converting your percents to a decimals, you either, option number 1, move the decimal 2 spaces to the left, or option number 2, divide the percent by 100 on your calculator. If you can get a hang of this method is much quicker and more efficient than the proportion method. So let's take a look at this example. Find 5% of 64. Remember, the part goes on top, the percent on the bottom left, and the whole on the bottom right. In this case, we know that we're finding 5% of 64. 5%, before we write it in the triangle, is 5 divided by 100, which is 0.05. When we put it into the triangle, we must put it in its decimal form. And since we are finding 5% of 64, that's our whole, and we're trying to find the part, which is x, or p, if you would like to leave it as p. To find the part, we would multiply 0.05 times 64, which gives us 3.2. Let's try this next example. 25% of what number is 42? Remember, is means equals, which means that is our part. 25% of what? So 25% is 0.25. 25% of what gives us our part, which is 42. So in this case, we're trying to find the whole. We're trying to figure out what was the original amount that we took 25% of. So we have the part, and we're going to divide it by the percent to get the whole. So 42 divided by 0.25 will give us what the original whole number was, 168. Another way of looking at this, if the triangle is not helpful, is to translate the question directly. So 25%, 0.25, times what number, since of means to multiply, is, which equals 42. So we're trying to figure out that 0.25 times something equals 42. And again, since we don't know what that is, we would do the reverse, which is to divide our answer, 42, by our percent, 25, which you can see is what we already did above. Our third and final example here is 7 is what percent of 40? In this problem, we don't know the percent, but we do know that the part is 7 and the whole is 40. In order to solve to find the percent, you're going to divide 7 divided by 40. When you do this, you're going to get the decimal 0.175. That is not your final answer. Remember, this is the decimal form of the percent. So we have to now reverse the process that what we did in the first two examples, turning a percent to a decimal. Now we need to turn our decimal to a percent. We can do that in one of two ways. You can move the decimal 2 spaces, this time to the right, making it 17.5, or you can multiply 0.175 times 100, since all percents are out of 100. Either way, our answer is 17.5. Here are a few examples for you to pause the video and give a try. Here are 2 word problems for you to try. In this first example, just to show you if you are using the triangle method, and I want you to use the equation method for these problems to give it a try, and then you will be able to choose for future problems which method you like better, proportion or equation. So in this case, they sold 80 loaves in one day, and 65% of the loaves were sold in the afternoon. So 80 is our total, and 65%, which is 0.65, would go on the bottom left, and we would multiply 0.65 times 80 to get 52. For the second example, we have the total number of video games sold in December and the total sold in the year. So we have the part, which is 1,320, and the whole, which is 4,400. You divide 1,320 by 4,400, which gives you 0.3, and we remember we need to multiply that times 100 to make it 30%. In this example, we know that the total number of students surveyed is 100. It tells us this in the problem this time, but you can also add that up. This is the percent of students who chose pizza. That's 40% of 100. And we're trying to figure out what would that be out of the total number of students in the school. So that's 40 over 100 equals x over 1800 if you're doing the proportion method. And if we're doing the equation method, which is what I want you to do now, we're going to say that 0.40 times 1800 equals 720 students. As a just quick mention, for those of you who are feeling comfortable with percents, there's a few kind of shortcuts to help you with calculating percents in your head or just to get a good estimate of those things. So one quick percent that's really helpful is 10%. If you can find 10% of something, oftentimes you can use that to help you find 5%, 20%, 15% even, 45%, 50%, because we can easily kind of cut that 10% in half. We can add percents together and all that stuff. So just as a quick mention, 10% of something, to find 10%, you just move your decimal one space to the left. So 10% of 85 is 8.5. I use this when I'm trying to calculate the tip on a bill. I often leave 20% tip, so if I find 10% and then I double it, that gives me my tip, which in this case would be $17. So that's an easy calculation to make in your head. So if that is something that comes naturally to you to do, kind of estimating in your head, this is a good helpful tool for you. Here's a few you can try if you want to give that method a try.